The bell at Northbridge Academy rings like an old heartbeat refusing to quiet. It echoes down the empty corridors long after the students have scattered into the evening, long after sunlight has withdrawn from the stone courtyard. I stand by the iron gate, my car waiting at the curb, the driver pretending not to notice that I haven't moved. I tell him to circle the block. He nods and disappears. Money buys many things, sometimes even silence. The school looks smaller than I remember, its bricks exhausted but proud. I could buy the entire property before breakfast, have it demolished before noon, but that would erase the only place that has ever resisted me. The weight of its stubbornness keeps it sacred. She stands at the doorway, framed in amber light, a faint silhouette wrapped in a coat that seems to belong to another world. Elena. Even her name feels like a secret I was never meant to say aloud. She's winding a scarf around her neck, talking to the caretaker, her laugh soft but distant, like she's already half gone. Then I hear it. "We'll miss you, Miss Duarte." Hard to imagine this place without you. The caretaker says it casually, but the words land like a verdict. I freeze. "Miss Duarte, leaving." She smiles. That patient, apologetic smile she uses when she's trying to convince herself she's doing the right thing. "It's time," she says. "My mother's clinic in Vale du Norte finally got approval for the education program. They need someone to build it from the ground up." The sound of her voice folds the air around me. "It's right," she adds. "Right." The word clangs in my head like a coin dropped into an empty drawer. I step forward before I've decided to. She turns, startled for only a moment before recognition spreads across her face. The corner of her mouth tilts in that half smile that undoes me. "I had a feeling," she says. "You don't show up unless something breaks." "Something did," I tell her. "The bell. It keeps ringing in my head." She laughs softly. "You always hated the bell." "I hate endings," I say, and regret the honesty immediately. We walk down the hallway together. The air smells of chalk dust and old wood, the kind of scent that doesn't exist in new buildings. Children's drawings hang crookedly on the walls. It's all imperfect and therefore alive. I was here years ago, when the city threatened to shut the place down. I wrote a check that wore the mask of generosity. She accepted it, but only if I volunteered on Saturdays with the kids. She said it was to show them what generosity looked like in motion. I think she just wanted to see if I could be human. At the end of the hall, she stops beside a door. "I'm packing tonight. Just the essentials. And you're leaving," I say, forcing the words past my throat. "In 2 weeks," she replies. "The city will survive without me. And you will too." I study her hands, chalk under the nails, a smudge on her wrist. My voice comes out quiet, almost pleading. "What if the school doesn't survive without you?" "Then it learns," she answers. "That's what schools do." I could let her go, I should. But there's a door inside me that only opens toward ruin, and I've already stepped through it. What if it didn't have to learn the hard way? I ask. What if it had resources? Her gaze sharpens. Resources or control? I pretend to consider it. I could keep the library open after hours, repair the roof, fund art classes again. I can, Adrian. Her voice cuts gently like silk through glass. You can't buy my reasons. The caretaker flicks the lights, reminding us the day is over. She turns toward her office. I remain watching the shadow of her steps until it disappears. 2 weeks. I repeat it silently until it sounds like a dare. When I reach the car, the leather smells like power and winter. Find out who owns this school, I tell the driver. He hesitates. It's city-run, sir. A board. There's always a board, I say. Arrange a meeting. The bell rings again in my skull. If I can buy the bell, maybe I can make it stop. That night, the city glows beneath my penthouse windows, a map of promises I've already broken. Glass and steel everywhere, none of it older than a decade, none of it stubborn enough to outlast me. So I pour a drink I don't want and stare at a photograph of the school pinned to my desk. In it, a crowd of children holds handmade signs thanking the donors. Elena stands at the edge, one hand resting on a student's shoulder, her eyes bright, steady. She has always stood at the edge of every frame, close enough to anchor it, far enough to remain untouchable. The plan writes itself. If she's leaving because the school is fragile, I'll make it unbreakable. I'll purchase it, restore it, endow it. She'll have no reason to go. It sounds logical. It always does before the collapse. Morning arrives disguised as strategy. The boardroom smells of varnish and fear. 5 people, all expecting charm with a side of threat. I give them both. I'm not here to interfere, I begin. I'm here to preserve. The chairwoman, silver-haired and sharp-eyed, leans forward. Preservation is what people say before they demolish something. Then let's call it renewal, I reply smoothly. I'll purchase the property, invest in restoration and create an endowment for scholarships. You'll retain full autonomy. I'll only keep the roof from collapsing and the lights from dying. One man clears his throat. And what do you get out of this? I get to see the school survive, I say. That's enough. They exchange skeptical glances. The chairwoman studies me like a surgeon deciding where to cut. We'll consider your proposal, she says. But you understand your reputation precedes you. Decisive, I say. That's the polite word for ruthless. And I can be ruthless about roofs. Her mouth twitches, almost a smile. The meeting ends in a fog of politeness. Outside, the wind scrapes at the flagpoles like fingernails. I light a cigarette I'll never finish. Then I hear her voice again. You went to the board. Elena stands by the gate, scarf caught in the wind. You actually went. I made an offer, I admit. For the school, she says slowly, like she's testing the words for poison. So I stay. So the school stays strong, I counter. She looks at me for a long time. You're threading your grief through brick and paper, Adrian. It's not grief, I say, and stop because it is. We walk along the fence. The rusted bars cast stripes of shadow across her face. She tells me about the clinic again, how they'll combine literacy programs with healthcare, how the children there have never owned books of their own. Every sentence pulls her farther away like a train gathering speed. What if I fund it? I ask. You could build it without leaving. No, she says softly. If you fund it, it becomes yours. I need it to be ours. Her meaning is gentle and lethal at once. What do you want me to do? I ask. Tell me what doesn't feel like control. She stops under the old oak tree in the courtyard. The students carved their initials there for decades. Tell the board that if they take your money, it's because the school deserves it, not because I do. I'm not trapping you, I say, then don't build a cage and call it a home. The wind scatters leaves across the path between us. I look at the windows, at the reflection of clouds drifting through broken glass. I'll draft a different deal, I tell her. No ownership. Just support, she exhales. That's the first honest thing you've said today. When I return to my office that night, I tear apart the contract. I design a new one, an endowment run by a trust I can't touch, with funds for labs and art rooms and scholarships that will outlive me. I can't make her stay, but I can stop punishing the building for letting her go. 2 days later, the board accepts my proposal. Not the purchase, only the endowment. A compromise that tastes like surrender and grace at the same time. The chairwoman calls me personally. Her voice is cautious, like someone handling a wild animal that seems calm but still has teeth. Your foundation will hold the assets. The school remains public. You'll have naming rights if you want them. I don't, I say. The name belongs to the children who earn it. A pause. Then this is generosity. No, I tell her. It's restitution. When I hang up, I stare at the skyline until it stops looking like victory. The next morning, I arrive at the academy before sunrise. The air smells of wet leaves and chalk dust. The caretaker nods at me without surprise. Maybe he always expected I'd come back. Inside, the corridors are quiet but awake, full of the kind of silence that listens. Elena is in her classroom, surrounded by boxes. She looks up as I enter. For a moment, the air between us feels heavy enough to lean on. I'm not buying the school, I tell her, but the roof won't leak again. And the library will never close for lack of light. She studies my face like she's searching for the catch. You're serious? Yes, her shoulders relax, a quiet surrender I've never seen in her before. That's the first thing you've done that isn't about me, she says softly. It's about them. I want to tell her she's wrong, that everything I do, every decimal on every check is about her, but I swallow it. Because she's right, and because for once, I want to be the kind of man who doesn't turn affection into ownership. We pack boxes together. Old books, rolled up posters, cracked mugs from forgotten field trips. She moves carefully, reverently, as though touching each object grants it a small funeral. I carry the heavier boxes, feeling absurdly grateful for the weight. When we finish, we sit on the floor drinking burnt coffee from paper cups. She looks out the window, watching the sky slide from grey to pale gold. The bell rings, its echo vibrating through the glass. You never did tame it, she says, smiling. I never should, I reply. For a moment, we're both quiet. The silence is almost kind. Then she says, "You could have owned this place." "I still could," I answer, "but you won't." "No." She nods once, approving and sorrowful all at once. "That's growth," I almost laugh. "Feels like amputation." It usually does. Her last week moves through the school like a slow farewell. The students sign the whiteboard in the teacher's lounge with messages that will be erased but never forgotten. Parents send letters that sound like blessings disguised as thank yous. The city plans a ceremony for her departure. I'm invited because I always am. I stand at the back of the auditorium, behind rows of folding chairs that smell of dust and perfume. She walks onto the stage, not as a teacher leaving, but as someone handing the world back to itself. The room stills. When she speaks, she doesn't need the microphone. Her voice fills the air like memory. She talks about beginnings that disguise themselves as endings, about the courage to move toward what feels uncertain. She thanks her students, the staff, the city. She doesn't mention me. Somehow that feels exactly right. When she finishes, the applause swells like a storm, and I realize that everything she built here will outlast both of us. After the ceremony, I wait outside by the old oak tree. The wind is cold enough to make the leaves hiss. She appears walking slowly, hands tucked into her coat pockets. "I kept your endowment anonymous," I tell her. "I know," she says. "The chairwoman told me not to tell you, she told me." I almost smile. "Then why tell me?" "Because I wanted to say thank you." Her eyes meet mine, steady, unwavering. "It's the first time in weeks I don't feel like I'm losing something." "You did the right thing," she says. "Even if it wasn't for the right reason at first." "Maybe there's no difference," I say. "There is," she replies. "Intention decides what survives." She looks back at the building one last time. "You know what's strange?" she says quietly. "I used to think this place was everything. Now I realize it was only the beginning." "And what about me?" I ask. "You were the lesson," she says. "The one that reminded me how easy it is to mistake control for care." Her taxi pulls up to the curb. She hesitates, then places her hand against my chest over my heart. "You don't need to fix everything to keep it," she whispers. I don't answer. I just stand there, memorizing the shape of the air between us. She steps into the cab. The door closes. The car pulls away, carrying her into a future that doesn't need my permission. I stay until the taillights disappear. The courtyard feels hollow but not empty, like something waiting to be rewritten. The caretaker passes by, locking the gates. "Good woman," he says. "The best," I answer. He nods, not asking what she was to me. Some things don't need definition to be understood. When I finally leave, the city lights blur into gold streaks on the windshield. I think about all the things money can buy. The buildings, the silence, the apologies. Then I think about what it can't. Her voice echoes in my mind. "You don't need to fix everything to keep it." By the time I reach my apartment, I know the truth I've been avoiding. I never wanted to own the school. I wanted to stop time, and no man, not even one like me, can buy that. The morning after she left, my penthouse felt like a museum of someone I used to be. The floors were too clean, the glass too honest. I walked through the rooms like a tour guide with nothing left to say. My reflection followed me from window to window, the same man, slightly thinner, as if the night had carved off what didn't fit. Work tried to resume its old shape. My calendar filled with meetings that had once defined me. Acquisitions, exits, a constellation of nouns arranged into inevitability. I sat at the head of each table and sounded like myself. The room accepted the imitation, but every time I said the word leverage, I heard a bell ring in the space behind my ribs. My legal team wanted to celebrate. "The endowment vehicle is elegant," my general counsel said, pleased in the way craftsmen are pleased by joints that fit so well you can't see the seam. "No liability, ironclad governance, no appearance of control." He lingered on the last phrase like a man trying out a new accent. "Good," I said, and meant it. Then I ruined the moment. "Make sure my name is nowhere." "Not even in the footnotes," he blinked. "Anonymous, giving invites speculation." "Speculation is cheaper than truth," I answered. "Let them spend their guesses." Publicity did what publicity does, it went hunting. A few outlets ran a fuzzy photo of me standing near the school gates, like an omen without a caption. An opinion column framed the endowment as a play for influence. Another called it atonement with a comma. The worst one tried to make it a love story. I told my communications director to say nothing at all. Silence is a poor shield, but a perfect mirror. I visited the academy before dawn 2 weeks later, unannounced, unimportant. The winter seemed tired of itself. Inside, scaffolding hugged the library's high walls like careful hands. Workers moved through dust that sparkled in the first light, their boots writing a new grammar across the floor. In the corner, a shelf gave up a cloud of old paper smell that would outlast even the paint. Someone had left a note taped to the circulation desk. Please keep the window seats, underline, underline, underline. I found the chairwoman in the principal's office. Reading grant language as if it were poetry, you had to argue with first. She looked up and offered the kind of smile institutions save for donors they don't owe. A drive-by inspection? She asked. A visitation, I said. I came to see whether a promise can stand when nobody is performing it. It can, she replied, but it helps when someone who could interfere decides not to. She didn't thank me. I didn't require it. We walked the halls without commentary, two citizens of different countries agreeing on the weather. At the end of the corridor, near the oak that reached through the courtyard like a veteran who'd survived more winters than the building, I paused. The door to Elena's room stood open, the walls naked without her maps and quotes. On the windowsill, a residue remained where her coffee cup had always found its morning. I put my hand on that strip of light-warmed wood and thought, absurdly, that I could feel the shape of a ghost. You are not buying the school, the chairwoman said quietly, as if reminding me and absolving me at once. I never could have, I replied. At best, I would have owned the deed. She nodded, satisfied. Then let me tell you something you won't put in a press release. She gestured toward the science wing, half dismantled, half born. A panel in that lab still bears a pencil mark, height lines from students who wanted to prove they were growing. We found them when we removed the cabinets. I've asked the crew to keep that panel where it is. Money usually erases what came before. I prefer it to be a new layer, layers. That word had never sounded like mercy before. When I left, a delivery truck blocked the gate. The driver hopped down, signed, lifted, laughed with the caretaker about football. I stood there longer than a man like me should stand anywhere, hands empty, while the building received what it needed without needing me. My phone buzzed later, shivering across the leather of the back seat. A message from an unknown number, a photo of a train depot that had become something else. The window frame in the image was imperfect, the kind of asymmetry that proves a place was built by hands, not a computer. I didn't need a signature to know who sent it. Made it, the text said. The bell here is softer. I typed and erased. Typed and erased. Then I wrote only, I'll hear it when I visit. I did not add when. I closed my eyes and decided to learn how to live between answers. Investors grew nervous because that is their job. You're distracted, one of them said, which in our industry is just another word for human. Your last 3 decisions were conservative. Correct, I said. We are stewarding, not plundering. He frowned as if I'd suggested we take our yachts and turn them into libraries. Is this about your philanthropic activity? It's about not confusing appetite with strategy, I replied. And yes, it's also about that. He opened his mouth to argue and then remembered my returns. Principles are easier to tolerate when they are subsidized by profit. At night, I began walking the city without a destination. I left the car at home, left my security detail with a map and an instruction to trust me. The city is different on foot. Noise becomes specific. Smells choose you. I passed a bookstore that shouldn't have survived the last decade and bought a paperback from a clerk, who asked me whether I wanted a bag as if he were giving me an out. Outside, I sat on a step and read a page of a book with no plans for my name to be anywhere on it. A boy chased a paper airplane past my shoes, laughing in a language I recognized as future. The plane landed on my knee. I launched it again without ceremony. It sailed better the second time. Most things do when you stop aiming them. My father's watch, heavy and unpersuasive, ticked louder once I paid attention to it. He had taught me that the man with the ledger holds the pen that writes the story. He did not teach me what to do when the story refuses ink. On his deathbed, he asked for his buildings to keep his name. I gave it to him because dying makes negotiators of us all. Yet here I was, refusing a different version of the same plea. Not dignity through ownership, but presence through omission. The price of nearness, I learned, is distance. You keep close what you can't hold by stepping back far enough to see it. It sounds like nonsense until your hands finally open. Weeks folded into the sound of contractors, hammering the past into the shape of a better present. The lab tables arrived. The library windows breathed. A teacher I didn't know sent a short video of students reading in a sun puddle that hit just right. Nobody looked at the camera because nobody had been told to be grateful. The one thing I didn't do was call her. I wrote drafts of messages I never sent. How is your mother? Delete. Does the clinic smell like alcohol or eucalyptus? Delete. Do you miss the bell? Delete. Instead, I learned to talk to the room I was actually in. My CFO noticed. You're quieter in the Monday meetings, she said, but sharper, like a blade left in water. I'm trying to let other people finish their sentences, I told her. And it's working, she replied, surprised and pleased in equal measure. The junior team argued with you today and survived. Good, I said. We'll need their eyes more than our habits. She glanced at the photo on my desk, the one from the academy, children clustered around a woman at the edge of the frame. Keep that there, she said. It's the only thing in this office that's not performing. I laughed, grateful for a colleague who could point at my heart without making a speech. After she left, I turned the frame slightly, not to hide it, just to give it a different view of the room. By the time the first invoices hit my inbox, some part of me had relaxed into this new posture, giving without the ache of proof. My accountant warned me about tax implications I already understood. My lawyers asked whether we should draft public statements. I told everyone the same thing. We don't explain love, I said, and watched them flinch at the word. We account for it. One evening, when the light went chrome over the bay and my office had the melancholy of a theater after the audience is gone, I finally opened a map. Vale du Norte was a green thumbprint tucked against a patient river. Roads curled into it like the last line of a story. I traced the route, closed the map, and bought nothing. The next day I received a brown envelope sealed with tape that didn't trust glue. No return address. Inside, a stack of children's drawings. A train with a library car. A classroom with a door labeled open. A woman with a scarf standing beside a man with a tie, both without faces. On the back of the last drawing, in neat handwriting, "Thank you for the van, no names. Just gratitude that belonged to the future, not to me." I sat a long time with those drawings spread across my desk, each page a kind of ledger I had never learned to keep. Then I put them back in the envelope and locked it in the drawer, where I used to keep the contracts that made men call me ruthless in boardrooms and visionary on magazine covers. The drawer didn't mind the change. When I finally told my driver to prepare the car for a trip out of town, I didn't specify the destination. "We'll choose on the way," I said. He nodded, professional and kind. "There's a storm in the hills." "Good," I replied. "I could use something bigger than me." We left the city behind with the ease of someone who has left too many cities behind. The highway unspooled. The radio offered songs I didn't recognize and refused to pretend I did. I closed my eyes and listened to the wheel hum its circular sermon. Somewhere a softer bell waited to be heard by a man who had finally stopped trying to buy it. I slept. For the first time in months, I slept. The hills grew darker as we climbed. Rain gathered on the windshield, thin at first, then heavier, like the sky was relearning how to cry. My driver's hands were steady, but I could tell he was wondering if I'd changed destinations halfway through. When the first lightning split the horizon, I asked him to pull over. There was an overlook, half hidden by trees. Below us, the land opened into miles of forest, soft with mist, the kind of view that makes you question what your buildings were ever compensating for. "Wait here," I said. I stepped out into the rain, coat open, wind scraping through it. The air was electric, alive. It pressed against me, demanding to be felt. And for once I let it. The storm didn't care who I was. The sky had no interest in my empire. It only wanted to fall. I stood there until I was soaked and shivering, but something inside me was cleaner than it had been in years. When I got back in the car, the driver looked at me in the mirror, concerned but disciplined enough not to ask questions. "Where to, sir?" I took a breath. "Keep driving east." We drove for hours, the rain easing into a rhythm like a heartbeat. I thought about her voice, about how she said the word right, not as an opinion but as a direction. I thought about what it meant to stop negotiating with the world and start listening to it. By dawn, we were close to Vale du Norte. The sign was small, hand-painted, tilted by years of weather. I told the driver to turn back. "You're not going in." he asked. Not yet, I said. Not until I know why. Because visiting her too soon would turn the gesture into performance, and I'd done enough performing to last several lifetimes. Back in the city, the storm followed me like a polite ghost. The news cycle had moved on. The headlines were about markets, not mercy. I liked it that way. I began spending more time in the library wing I'd helped restore. Not the school's, mine. The personal one I'd ignored for years. I walked its aisles, touching spines, reading titles I'd bought but never opened. Knowledge without attention is vanity. I found a copy of The Old Man and the Sea. The pages yellowed. A line stopped me cold. A man can be destroyed but not defeated. I'd always thought the opposite was true. Weeks passed. The world continued without permission. The markets rose, the schools filled, the bells rang. And yet every night, the same silence returned to my apartment like an uninvited friend who had learned where the key was hidden. Then one afternoon, the phone rang. The chairwoman again. We're dedicating the new library next month, she said. The children wanted to invite you. I'm not good with ceremonies, and they're not asking for speeches, just presents. The one thing I'd been practicing without a guidebook. I'll come, I said. The day of the dedication was bright enough to make people believe in second chances. The courtyard had been cleaned, the windows washed, the old oak pruned but not tamed. Ribbons fluttered between posts like restrained joy. I arrived early before the crowds. The caretaker was there setting out chairs. He gave me a nod that carried no hierarchy, just recognition. Didn't think you'd show up, he said. Neither did I admitted. He grinned. She'd like that. The ceremony began. Children read short poems about books, about light, about the way learning can make a person taller even when they stop growing. The principal thanked donors without naming them, a grace I appreciated. And then the new plaque was unveiled. Not with my name. Not with hers. It bore the name of a woman I'd never met. Elena's mentor, the teacher who'd once taught her that words are a kind of shelter. The engraving caught the sunlight perfectly. I felt something inside me unclench. Afterward, I lingered in the back until the crowd thinned. A little girl approached, holding a book half her size. Mister, are you the one who fixed the roof? I hesitated. I helped, she nodded seriously. It doesn't leak anymore. Good, I said. Then it worked. She smiled and ran off, her shoes squeaking like punctuation marks. The chairwoman appeared beside me. She's right, you know. It doesn't leak anymore. Not just the roof. I turned to her. Meaning? Meaning some things heal where we don't expect them to. I left before sunset. The city swallowed me again, but the air felt lighter. I drove with the windows down, letting the cold wind slap truth back into my face. That night, for no reason at all, I took out the old photo of the academy students. For years, I'd kept it framed. Now I removed it from the glass, unfolded the edges, and wrote on the back, "The price of nearness is learning when to stand still." Then I put it back in the drawer. Weeks later, a message arrived, a picture of children reading under a mural of a tree. The caption was simple. They love the van. It was unsigned, but it didn't need to be. I stared at the photo for a long time. In it, the sunlight came from a different angle, softer, warmer. The bell tower in the background had no clock, only the memory of one. And for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the need to measure the hour. I forwarded the image to no one. Some things are lighter when they aren't shared. That night I slept again, and this time the bell in my chest didn't ring at all. It just hummed, quiet, alive, waiting for the next day to begin. Time didn't heal. It only rearranged the furniture. Weeks turned into months, the city into habit. I built new projects, attended old meetings, filled my days with strategy and my nights with silence. I was busy, efficient, successful, the kind of man people thanked for showing up when he didn't even know why he was there. But something in me had shifted. Deals that once made my pulse quicken now felt like rehearsals. The applause came and it echoed into nothing. My empire ran smoother than ever, and yet I felt like a guest in my own life. One morning, a letter arrived. Not an email, not a couriered envelope stamped with a logo. A letter handwritten, folded twice, sealed with tape. No signature on the outside. Inside was a photo, Vale do Norte at sunset. The clinic stood where the train depot used to be. Children were drawing chalk lines across the platform. In the distance, a bell tower tilted slightly, as if still remembering another life. There was one line beneath the photo. We opened the literacy wing today. The bell works. Softer, like you said, no name. But she didn't need one. That night I stared at the photo until the light behind it dimmed. Then I made a decision that wasn't a decision at all. I called my driver. We're leaving tomorrow morning. He didn't ask where. He just said, yes, sir. The road to Vale du Norte was a lesson in humility. My car wasn't built for dirt and patience. The closer we got, the smaller the world became. Fields gave way to winding roads lined with eucalyptus. The air smelled alive, sharp, clean, unapologetic. When we finally arrived, the town didn't look like a place waiting to be discovered. It looked like a place that had never asked to be found. The clinic sat on a small rise, whitewashed walls catching the late sun. The sign read, Centro Comunitario Duarte, her name, not mine. Children ran in and out of the courtyard carrying books like treasures. The sound of laughter mingled with the faint rhythm of hammering from a workshop nearby. It wasn't luxury, but it was alive, more alive than any skyscraper I'd ever owned. I parked the car at the edge of the lot. She saw me before I found the courage to move. Elena stepped out from the shaded corridor, her hair caught by the wind, a streak of chalk still faint on her sleeve. For a moment it was as if time had rehearsed this reunion and was too nervous to get it right. You came, she said. I did. She smiled. Small, cautious, genuine. I didn't think you would. I didn't either, I admitted. She gestured toward the building. Come see. Inside, the walls smelled of new paint and eucalyptus. Shelves lined the main room, full of donated books. Some new, some barely holding their spines. There were maps, hand-drawn posters, even a timeline painted by children across one wall. From the train depot to the dream. You did this, I said quietly. We did this, she corrected. You helped? Only on paper, she shook her head. No, on principle. I watched her move through the room, greeting people by name, bending to tie a child's shoe, adjusting a crooked frame. She hadn't changed. Or maybe she had in all the ways that mattered. The certainty in her had deepened, the same way rivers carve themselves into stone. Would you like to see the new library van? She asked. Yes, I said. Outside, parked under a jacaranda tree, was a small white van covered in drawings, a sun, a train, a stack of books with wings. Inside, wooden shelves ran along both sides, filled with paperbacks and worn storybooks. A tiny reading nook was built in the back, with a cushion that had clearly been sewn by many hands. It's beautiful, I said. It's freedom, she replied. It can go where the children can't. I nodded, speechless. I'd spent my entire life building walls taller than people's dreams. She'd built a door on wheels. She leaned against the van, watching me watch it. You really didn't put your name on it. No, I said. It didn't belong there. I'm proud of you. The words shouldn't have meant so much, but they landed like a benediction. We walked back toward the courtyard. The air buzzed with evening noise, laughter, voices, the distant rhythm of the new bell. She looked toward the hills. You know, she said softly, I was angry at you for a while. I know. I thought you were trying to own what couldn't be owned. I was. She turned to face me. And now? Now I'm trying to learn what can be given without losing it. Her eyes softened. And how's that going? Badly, I said. But I'm improving. She laughed, really laughed, the sound spilling into the dusk like light through a broken window. You can stay for dinner, she said finally. There's nothing fancy, but the food's real. I'd like that, and I did. Dinner was held outside under strings of mismatched lights. Volunteers, teachers, and students gathered around long tables covered in patchwork cloth. There was rice, beans, roasted vegetables, food made with time instead of money. Someone handed me a plate, someone else poured me juice. Nobody treated me like a donor or a name from a headline. I was just another pair of hands learning where to put the fork. A boy sitting beside me leaned in. Are you the one who brought the books? I helped bring the van, I said. He nodded thoughtfully. That counts. Elena sat across from me, laughing with the others, her hair catching the light like memory refusing to fade. Every so often her eyes found mine, and neither of us looked away. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like I was performing in my own life. I wasn't the architect or the benefactor. I was simply there, present. When the meal ended, music began, a guitar, a voice, a rhythm that belonged to the place itself. People clapped along. Children danced barefoot in the dust. I found myself smiling without effort. Elena leaned close, her voice barely above the music. You look different. I feel different. Because of the school? Because of the distance, I said. I finally stopped standing between what I want and what it needs. She studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Maybe that's what real change sounds like. Not louder, just clearer. The song ended. Applause scattered like rain. For a heartbeat. The night held its breath, and in that silence, I realized something simple and devastating. This, the laughter, the food, the shared warmth of strangers. This was the life I'd been trying to purchase my whole life, without knowing it had never been for sale. When the music thinned, and the night remembered how to breathe, I wandered to the old platform where trains used to pause before committing to distance. Grass had reclaimed the rails as if to say that leaving is not the only form of motion. The bell in the square rang once, no clock face, just a sound with good manners. Softer, yes, she had been right about that. Elena joined me, carrying 2 metal cups that sweated in the warm air. "Chá de capim-limão," she said. "It forgives long days." She handed me one. I took a careful sip. The steam smelled like afternoons I hadn't earned yet. We stood side by side, not touching, both watching the town glow in little pieces. "So you built a place where bodies and words share a roof," I said. "That's a revolution disguised as a schedule." "It's smaller than it looks," she answered, "and bigger than I planned." She glanced at me. "How are you, really?" "Less interested in winning," I said. "More interested in staying." She smiled, a small concession to the possibility that people can change. "Then let me tell you what staying looks like here. We run out of printer paper once a month. The van gets stuck on the hillside after rain. Someone has to read stories under a mango tree because the classroom is too hot at noon. We fix what we can and forgive what we can't. I can send more paper," I offered, reflex and repentance braided together. "You can," she said gently, "but only if you understand it will run out again. That's not failure. That's rhythm. Rhythm, the word resized my life. I had built schedules like fortresses. She built patterns like songs. A child drifted toward us, the boy who'd asked whether I'd brought the books. He held a paper airplane with its nose bent blunt. "It keeps crashing," he announced, affronted. "Try a cleaner fold," I suggested, kneeling. I pressed the crease flat with my thumb, lifted the wings a fraction, handed it back. He threw. The plane cut the air and held it, gliding in a long curve before settling near the bell tower. He turned to me with a look I recognized from every deal I'd ever closed. Delight when the world briefly does what you ask. "What's your name?" I asked. "Luan," he said. "What's yours?" "Adrian." He nodded once, as if shelving the information alphabetically. "You throw next time," he declared, and was gone. "Recruiting new board members?" Plana teased. "I'd make him chair," I said. "He already understands flight and landing." We walked the perimeter of the old platform. A mural covered one wall. Children had painted a train transforming into a bookshelf as it moved. In the corner, a small dedication read, "For those who taught us to arrive, no names." Just the plural truth. "I thought money could repair anything," I said. "Turns out it can only repair the things that shouldn't have broken in the first place." "And what about the things that should break?" she asked. "Then we stopped trying to glue them," I answered. "We let them become something else." She considered that. "Do you still think about buying the school?" The question was gentle, not a test but a temperature check. "I think about the version of me who needed to," I said. "I think he was scared that if he didn't own the door, he'd be locked out. And now? Now I understand the door was never mine to begin with." We fell into a silence that felt earned. Crickets soared at the dark. The vans from the clinic hummed somewhere beyond the trees. A woman laughed in 2 bursts that could have been a sob. And then the night folded her noise into the rest. "I'm leaving early tomorrow," I said. "Before the town wakes up enough to notice." She nodded, not surprised. "Will you come back?" "If I can do it the way I did today, without taking anything," I said. "Then yes, that would be welcome." She studied me as if reading the margins where a student hides the better answers. "You know, when you first offered to buy the school, I felt cornered, like the floor had moved and only you knew where it went. Tonight I felt the opposite. Like the ground was steady even when you arrived. I'm learning where to put my feet," I said. "And your hands," she added, glancing at them. "They're open." I looked down. Strange that she was right. Fingers uncurled, palms empty. No contract waiting, no pen poised. "It's uncomfortable," I admitted. "It will be," she said. "Until it isn't." We said goodnight at the clinic steps. She touched my sleeve. A brief, ordinary touch that somehow rearranged the room of my chest. Sleep well, Adrian. I will, I lied, because I wanted to keep the moment intact. I didn't sleep. I watched the ceiling fan carve the air into quiet slices and listened to the town make domestic noises I'd never heard in my buildings. The clink of a kettle lid, a dog's single warning bark, a soft knock followed by the word "Entra." By the time the sky paled, I had decided on nothing except to leave without ceremony. I walked to the van before sunrise. A young volunteer was already there, arranging books the way you arrange promises, spine up, readable. She looked at me with clear eyes, uninterested in my biography. "We take the Hills Road after rain," she said. "Less mud." "Good to know," I answered. It felt perfect that she'd offered me a fact instead of thanks. The drive out of town felt like reversing a film, laughter unspooling, light untangling from roofs. At the bend in the road, I told the driver to stop. I got out, looked back, and did nothing dramatic. I didn't bow or whisper a vow. I just stood there until the bell rang once, a sound so faint it felt like the opposite of a claim. Back in the city, my office had not noticed I was gone. Paperwork had multiplied the way ivy does, when it thinks no one is watching. Meetings had stacked themselves like bricks. I moved through them without violence. When someone asked for my opinion, I tried lending it instead of stamping it. When a junior analyst disagreed, I listened hard enough to find where she was right. We cancelled a risky acquisition that would have scorched a neighborhood for the sake of a headline. My team braced for an outburst that didn't arrive. "We'll make margin somewhere else," I said. "Preferably not on someone's home." A headline did find me, a profile about the billionaire who gave without a name. The journalist had the good manners to keep it mostly wrong. My communications director asked if we should correct the record. "Let the story be inaccurate," I said. "The building is correct. The rest is vanity." I went to the academy one afternoon and saw a group of students testing a small robot that dragged a magnet along the hallway to collect lost paper clips. Genius disguised as mischief. A new teacher introduced herself without flinching. "You're the man who kept the lights on," she said. "I'm the man who paid the bill," I corrected. "You're the lights," she laughed. "I'll steal that for the staff room. Please do." The chairwoman found me staring at a panel of drywall where pencil lines recorded years of growth. Someone had varnished it without erasing anything, so the smudges lived forever in amber. "You asked once what you get out of this," she said. "Here it is. Not your name on a wall, your restraint embedded in it." "I didn't ask for that," I said. "No," she agreed. "You learned it." She tilted her head. "You look taller." "I'm the same height," I said. "Not on that wall, you're not." On the way back to my car, I saw a parent standing by the gate, holding an umbrella in the wrong season because habit outlives weather. She recognized me but didn't pounce. "My son said the new library smells like rain," she offered. "A gift with no ribbon." "It does," I said, surprised at how quickly the truth arrived. "It smells like pages about to be turned." That night in my apartment, I opened the drawer with the brown envelope and took out the drawings from Val do Norte. I laid them across the table. The train into bookshelf, the door labeled open, the faces missing because the artist had not wanted to guess. I added something to the envelope, a note, not a letter, for printer paper when rhythm requires it. I placed a modest check behind the note, the kind that could be folded into a budget without announcing itself. I slept with the window open. The city's bells marked the hour with less arrogance than before, or maybe my hearing had learned moderation. Either way, I let the sound come and go without suing it for damages. When the envelope returned from the clinic a week later, it contained my check, voided, and a receipt I hadn't expected, paid in full with attendance. Below it, a list of items purchased with community donations, 3 reams of paper, 1 tire for the van, a stack of composition books, a jar of cookies labeled "For Helpers," official and otherwise. No signatures. At the bottom, a postscript in Elena's hand. "Come by in autumn. The jacaranda will be louder then. Bring no gifts except time. The one tender currency, the one I had counterfeited for years with money and declarations. I circled a week in my calendar and left it blank. My assistant asked what to code it under. "Maintenance," I said. "Personal." Before autumn, the Academy sent another newsletter. Photos of a lab bright enough to make science look friendly. A paragraph about a debate team that won a regional round because someone argued that mercy is a form of intelligence. On the last page, A shot of the library window seats with shoe scuffs where children had climbed to sit. The caption read, "Wear and tear our favorite metric." I forwarded that one to exactly one person. She replied with a picture taken under a jacaranda that had exploded into violet. Children sat in a wide ring, listening to a story read by a teenager whose voice carried like a promise. The bell tower was out of frame. It didn't matter. I could hear it anyway. What money couldn't repair, presence had started to mend. Not perfectly. Perfectly would have been another lie, but honest enough that the world stopped requiring explanation every time I walked into a room and didn't rearrange it. On the first cool evening of the season, I put on a jacket that had seen bad parties and walked to the bookstore that shouldn't have survived. The clerk recognized me enough to pretend he didn't. I bought a children's book about a train that became a library car. On the way out, a boy's paper airplane drifted toward me again, as if the city had decided repetition is a form of blessing. I caught it, straightened its nose and sent it back into the warm dark. It flew longer this time. I stood there until it landed, then kept walking, hands empty, pockets light, heart practicing the new habit of not buying what I could simply hold for a moment and then let go. Autumn came without asking for attention. It didn't crash into the city. It settled on it, a season that understood how to enter quietly. I'd marked a week on my calendar months ago and kept it clean, an empty room waiting for meaning. When I left the city this time, I didn't bring contracts, only a small notebook. No driver, no schedule. The road didn't look different, but I did. The horizon wasn't a finish line anymore, just a place where the light decided to rest. Vale du Norte welcomed me like an old friend who'd stopped expecting apologies. The jacarandas had exploded in purple. Petals covered the street like pieces of sky that had fallen for good reason. Children ran between them, chasing each other with chalk-stained hands. Elena was in the courtyard, sleeves rolled up, hair tied back. She was painting a wooden sign. Biblioteca Móvil Duarte. She looked up when I stopped a few feet away, and the expression that crossed her face wasn't surprise. It was recognition. "You made it," she said. "I told you I would. You tell a lot of people things, and I only keep the important ones," I said. She smiled. Small, tired, proud. "Do you still deflect with charm?" Habit dies slower than intention. She handed me a brush. "Then help." I took it. The paint was the color of old wine, the kind that stains but never regrets it. Together we traced letters in silence, our hands occasionally bumping, not by accident, not on purpose, but in that middle ground where fate pretends it's subtle. When we finished, she stood back and nodded. "It'll dry crooked." "It's honest that way," she laughed, wiping her hands on her jeans. "You're learning." We walked the edge of the courtyard. Children were reading under the tree, their voices overlapping like waves. One of them called her name, holding up a book. She went to them, kneeled down and began helping with the words. I stood there, watching the sunlight find her hair, and understood what peace actually looked like, not stillness but purpose without noise. Later, when the last of the kids had left and the shadows stretched long, we sat on the old platform. The bell rang once. The sound carried far enough to make memory look up. "You could have stayed in the city," she said. "I did for a while, but everything started sounding like paperwork, didn't it always? Maybe I just stopped mistaking sound for meaning." She turned to me. "So what now? You've rebuilt what you broke, donated what you could, learned to let go. Is that enough?" "I don't know," I said, "but I'm starting to think enough isn't something you reach. It's something you live in." She smiled, quiet and approving. "That's dangerously close to wisdom," I laughed. "Don't tell anyone." As the sky bruised into purple, she stood, brushing dust from her jeans. "I have something for you." She went inside and came back with a small notebook bound in rough paper. "The students made it. It's for you." On the cover, written in uneven letters, the things we keep inside were drawings, poems, questions without answers. On one page, a line written in pencil. "What if the richest person is the one who can leave something behind without fear?" I closed it carefully. "They're smarter than we were at their age. They're smarter than we are now. I'll take that as a compliment." "It is." She leaned against the wall beside me. The quiet between us had weight, but not the kind that hurts. "You know," she said softly, "when you first offered to buy the school, I hated you. I deserved that. I thought you wanted to save me. But really, you just didn't want to lose. And now, Now I think you wanted to learn. You just didn't know the subject yet. Her voice was calm, but the truth in it stung like cold water. I nodded. And what was the lesson? That love isn't ownership, she said. It's architecture. You build it so others can live inside it, even when you're gone. The words settled in me like something I'd been trying to hear for a lifetime. The next morning, fog blanketed the hills. The van was already gone, early delivery to the smaller villages. I helped load boxes of books onto a pickup, more symbolic than useful. Eleanor gave instructions to volunteers, her voice steady, efficient. When the last box was placed, I turned to her. "There's something I want to offer," I said. She raised an eyebrow. "Another donation?" "No," I said. "Something else." "Go on." "An endowment of time," I said. "Mine." She frowned, curious. "I want to come here. Not to manage or fund or oversee, just to work. Sweep floors, carry boxes, fix roofs when they start leaking again. No one needs to know who I am." Her expression softened. "You'd do that?" "I already have everything that doesn't matter." "I'd like to try the opposite." She looked at me for a long moment, measuring the truth. Then she nodded. "We start Mondays at 8. "Don't be late," I smiled. "You still give orders like someone who doesn't expect refusal. And you still hear them like someone who's tired of fighting." "Fair enough." The wind picked up, scattering petals from the jacaranda across our shoes. She bent down, picked one up and pressed it into the notebook she'd given me. "For page 1, she said. "For the next chapter," I replied, and for once I wasn't speaking in metaphor. The following Monday I arrived before the sun. The fog still clung to the ground, reluctant to release its hold. I parked far from the gates and walked the rest of the way. The town was waking up, a rooster too proud for its own voice, the scrape of a broom against stone, a door opening to let in the morning. I found the caretaker already there. He was sweeping the courtyard, the same man who'd once watched me from a distance while I tried to buy the world. He looked up, squinting through the mist. "You're early. I'm new," I said. He nodded as if that explained everything. "Tools are in the shed. Coffee's strong enough to wake the saints." "Good," I said. I stopped praying, but I still need the caffeine. He laughed, a sound as rough as gravel and just as honest. "You'll fit right in." The day unfolded without ceremony. I fixed a cracked hinge on the gate, painted a section of the fence and carried boxes of donated books from one room to another. The work was simple, repetitive, grounding, the kind of labor that doesn't care who you used to be. For the first time in years, I wasn't managing outcomes. I was simply completing tasks. When Elena arrived, she found me on the ladder repairing a gutter. "You're supposed to start with something lighter," she said. I wanted a challenge. "That's not a challenge. That's gravity waiting to win. Then I'll lose gracefully." She smiled up at me, shading her eyes from the light. "You look different from up there. Maybe I finally look like the man I was supposed to be." She tilted her head. "And who's that?" "Someone who doesn't need to buy his way into meaning." Her eyes softened. "Keep talking like that and we might give you a raise." I laughed, nearly losing my balance. "Please don't. I can't afford another promotion." At midday, the children returned from classes. They ran through the courtyard, voices bright enough to make the air lighter. One of them, Luan, the boy with the paper airplane, had stopped when he saw me. "You fixed the gutter," he said. "I tried. It's not dripping anymore." Then it worked. He looked thoughtful. "So you're good at fixing things?" "Not everything," I said. He nodded seriously, as if considering that for later use, then ran off to chase his friends. Elena joined me by the bench. "He likes you." "Children forgive faster than adults. Maybe they just recognize effort or honesty," I said. "Something we forget how to give without an invoice." She didn't reply. She just sat beside me, her shoulder brushing mine, the kind of small contact that feels like permission. The bell rang, one clear note across the courtyard. It wasn't an announcement, just a reminder that the world was still turning. We stayed there long after the sound faded. No words, no plans, no promises. Just two people breathing in the same direction. Over the following weeks, I became a fixture of the place. Some mornings I stacked books. Others I swept leaves from the steps. I learned the names of the teachers, the dogs, the shortcuts between classrooms. The students began to greet me without hesitation, sometimes with a wave, sometimes with questions about why the sky changes colors when the sun leaves. I didn't always have answers. That was the point. The rhythm of the work became a kind of prayer, one that required hands instead of words. The world outside kept spinning its headlines and profits, but I found something more precise here: continuity without competition. One afternoon, while sanding a bench, I caught Elena watching me from the doorway. "You missed a spot," she said. "I was saving it for you." She smiled. "You've gotten good at staying." "Only because I stopped pretending it's a weakness." She walked closer. "You know what you're doing, right? Trying to earn a place?" "No," she said softly. "You're building one." Her voice was steady, but something inside it trembled. Not fear, just recognition. Months passed, the kind that don't announce themselves. Seasons folded neatly, each one adding a layer instead of replacing the last. The van kept running. The library grew. The children outgrew shoes, not dreams. Sometimes I went back to the city, only to find it shrinking behind me. The boardrooms felt smaller, the numbers less intoxicating. I'd sit through meetings where men half my age argued about acquisition targets, and I'd find myself thinking about chalk dust and jacaranda petals. I was still the owner of more companies than one man should ever manage, but ownership had lost its shine. Stewardship had replaced it, and in the quiet moments and between flights, between thoughts, I found myself returning not because I needed to, but because I wanted to. The last time I saw Elena that year, she was standing under the bell tower, holding a book open to the sky as if reading to the clouds. The children were gone for the day. The courtyard was empty except for us. "What are you reading?" I asked. "Something the students wrote," she said. "A story about a train that forgot it was supposed to move. And does it remember?" She smiled. "Eventually. It learns it can be a library instead." I nodded. "Seems familiar." She closed the book, looked at me. "You know, when you first walked into my classroom years ago, I thought you were a storm, something to endure. And now? Now you're the rain that stayed long enough for things to grow." The silence that followed wasn't awkward. It was full, the kind of quiet that only exists when everything that needed to be said already has been. I took a step closer, brushing a bit of paint from her hand. "If I ever try to buy anything here again," I said, "stop me." "I don't think you'll need stopping anymore." "Why's that?" "Because you finally understand the only thing worth owning is the time you choose to give." She was right. The bell rang again, softer than before, and the same note, the same echo, but this time it didn't sound like loss. It sounded like arrival. That night I left the town quietly, the way I'd learned to enter it. I didn't look back. I didn't need to. The world ahead wasn't waiting to be bought. It was waiting to be lived. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't chasing control. I was keeping company with peace,